the things I'm going to tell you about are the DecodeME study. So I think quite a lot of you took part in that. So that's the big genetic study. I'm going to tell you about a couple of biomarker studies. I'm going to tell you about a couple of studies that talked about the immune system or looked at the immune system. I'm going to tell you about a study that quite a few of you, I think, came to my lab and gave me blood for the mitochondria study. And then I'm going to look ahead to a couple of projects that are coming in the future. So next slide, please, Claire. So the DecodeME study, so this is a big study that was funded by the MRC about 5 or 6 years ago and was run out of the University of Edinburgh, but it was an online study. So yeah, I need that. And it was an online study. So they sent out saliva kits to people and then they posted them back. Okay, so overall they recruited over 21,000 people for this study, and then compared the genetics of the people that they recruited with ME, compared those to people from the biobank, the UK biobank as population controls. And the key thing that came out of this study, which reported in the summer, is that they discovered 8 genetic locations that are significantly associated with ME, including 3 genes that alter or are connected with how your body responds to viral or bacterial infection. Okay, so this is really interesting. So, and then some of those genes are also linked to neurological and immunological processes. So this is like really strong evidence that ME is a dysfunctional, a problem with the immune system, a problem with things that are going on neurologically in the brain, biological processes in the brain. Okay, so it's important to say these are not genes for ME. So you can't go to the doctor and ask to be tested for these genes. And if you've got the variant, if you've got the gene, that means you get ME. These are genes or variants in genes that are common across everybody, but they're more common in people with ME. Okay, so what they're like is it's a bit like a treasure map. It gives us a treasure map and tells us where to dig. Okay, so it gives us clues about the things that are probably going wrong in ME. So it gives us clues that things are dysfunctional in the immune system, things are dysfunctional in neurological systems. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, I'm good. Okay, so this study, and you can go and look it up if you want to. This study was also out of Edinburgh, and it was taking some of the data from the DecodeME study, and again going back and looking at the biobank, and this study confirms some of the, or backs up some of the DeCODE study. So again, it particularly shows that ME is a multi-system disease, and it particularly, if you look at the bottom, it says it particularly emphasized how the immune system's involved, and inflammation is involved, and neurological systems. So next slide. So the DecodeME study is not just one set of data, it's like they've confirmed it with a second set. Next slide, please, Claire. Okay, so these are a couple of biomarker studies. So this is a blood-based biomarker study. And then this is looking at RNA, which is nucleic acid in blood. And these studies, again, showed up chronic low-level inflammation. They showed that people with post-exertional malaise who had post-exertional malaise at the point where their sample was taken, the biomarker showed up more strongly. So when that feeling of being poisoned, you know, when those molecules that make you feel like you're being poisoned around in your body, they show up more clearly. This is a really interesting study in that they controlled for physical activity. So they showed, they measured physical activity in the participants really carefully and showed that that didn't make any difference. So the difference between the controls and the people with ME could not be explained by not being able to be physically active. So it shows that people trying to persuade you to be more physically active, that's not going to help at all. It's going to make things worse. So the cell-free RNA paper also confirmed that problems with the immune system and chronic inflammation lit up as important markers. Next slide, please, Claire. I should bring my glasses next time. Okay, so then there's another couple of studies, or another study here, again looking at the immune system. So this study, rather than looking at markers in the blood, they took cells, they isolated cells out of the blood samples, and they looked at people before and after exercise. So they did a kind of low-level, safe-ish exercise to try and trigger post-exertion malaise, but in a controlled way that didn't make people crash. And they showed that the immune system, so then they took cells from people before and after exercise and challenged them with a trigger, a bacterial trigger. And they showed that people with ME had their immune cells responded more strongly. So that means that when things kick off in our bodies, like say response to infection, it's much stronger than other people, not stronger in a good way that makes you get better quicker, stronger in a bad way, it makes you feel more ill. So they found that these abnormalities they observed were worse following exercise, and they correlated with people's symptoms. And they showed that this was the molecules that they particularly identified were linked to systemic inflammation. Okay, and lipid abnormalities. Next slide, Claire. So this is our study. This is our study that, so this was in collaboration with the people from Edinburgh, from Chris Ponting's lab, and several of you came and gave blood samples, which is great. So we were trying to replicate a study that had been previously published, but with quite a small number of samples. They took plasma and from healthy controls and people with ME and put it on muscle cells separately, and showed that the mitochondria and the muscle cells, which make energy, were like damaged as a result of having the plasma on. So we tried to replicate this, and we didn't actually find any difference between the people with ME and the people and the controls, which we were a bit like depressed, like kind of like disappointed. But the study we were trying to replicate was in people with severe ME. So they went to people's houses and took samples from people who were very unwell. We tried to be really good and tell people that if they felt unwell on the day of the sample, that they should cancel and come another day. So we said, if you wake up and you feel like you've got post-exertion malaise, don't come in, don't force yourself, come for another day. And now we think, well, maybe we undermined our own science, because maybe you need to feel like you need to have post-exertion malaise and feel rough in order for us to pick the molecules up, if you see what I mean. So if you don't have the molecules that make you feel poisoned around your system when we test you, maybe we can't get a positive result. So we're now thinking about, well, can we go and sample from people's houses? And the other thing is, there are devices we could give you so that if you wake up and you don't feel unwell, you could take blood in your own home for us and store it for us, and then we can come and fetch it from you. So we're going to revisit this study. Next slide, Claire. Okay, so just to summarize the results of the research this year, we're really talking about clear evidence that there is immune system and neurological system, nervous system dysfunction in people with ME. There's no doubt. When you look at these samples, you can see the differences. Okay. So looking ahead to 2026, I want to tell you about PRIME. So PRIME is a project funded by the MRC, and the 7 academics, of which I'm one, Chris Ponting's another one, across the UK. And this is not a research project, it's an infrastructure project trying to bring all the researchers who are studying ME and some who are studying long COVID across the country and also internationally all together, so that we're all sort of working together rather than it all being fragmented. So we're going to strengthen, so its aims are bringing together researchers from a range of backgrounds, strengthening international research networks, and also bringing a whole load of people in for PPI to inform further research projects. So we're looking for 100 people, at least 100 people, DecodeME, that we will train to get involved with research, as in advising research teams of the priorities and how to do research. So for instance, when we were talking about people coming into our lab, we asked people with ME, you know, what do we need to do? We need to have a room with low lighting. It needs to be easy car parking. It needs to be near the lift. It needs to, you know, not down a long corridor, all this kind of thing. So that's why it's really important with people with ME advise research projects. Next slide, Claire. I think this might be the last one. Yeah, so last week, so this block in blue is from the NIHR's webpage. So this was a call that the deadline was last Tuesday on the 2nd for teams to put in grants for to prepare for clinical trials for post-viral conditions or post-infection conditions. So I know of at least 5 groups that have put in for this call to try and get funding from the NIHR. 2 of them, I'm involved with 2 of them. And so those projects are about deciding which drugs we might test, which biomarkers we might use, and which symptoms we might measure. And then the idea would be we would then be ready for clinical trials. So those projects take about a year. So we'll know in about April or May whether we've got the money, and then they'll run for a year. And then hopefully they will give us some money towards clinical trials. So I don't want to get your hopes up, but we're crawling there very slowly. But maybe we are actually getting somewhere.